As promised, chapter 14. The next day, Ida and Flex stayed home. There was no choice. Flex was more happy to work along with his father, helping repair the barn and tend to the sheep in the fields. Ida, however, woke that morning completely miserable. No teaching, no exams, no high school, no future. She was trapped. And it was all her own fault. If only she hadn't spoken to Herbert's father. Though she wanted to, she knew she couldn't lay in bed and do nothing. She did her regular chores before breakfast, then took care of the baby when her mother asked her to. The spring sheep shearing had begun. Ida took Shelby up to the loft and tried to entertain him with one of her school books. "I could teach you your ABCs," she offered. The little boy studied her with large, uncomprehending eyes. "A is for apple pie," Ida began, pointing to the letters in the book. Shelby, however, suddenly reached forward and grabbed a hold of a page. Ida just managed to keep him from tearing it. "All right," she said with a sigh. "Let's go for a walk." She took the boy's hand, and then they made their way, with Shelby waddling, from their log house to the stream and back behind it. Still hoping to do some reading, Ida brought along her book. At the water's edge, Shelby squatted and placed his hands palm down into the water. Still cold and high from the mountain snow runoff, and laughed. Ida, for safety's sake, sat close by him, watching. She wondered what Tom was doing. Probably, she thought, with a pang of envy, printing church circulars or fiddling with his radio and listening to the world. She picked up her book, but didn't open it. "Shelby," Ida said, "what am I going to do?" Shelby slapped the water with his hand, making a splash that wet him. First startled, he then laughed with delight and did it again. "Slapping the water won't help me," Ida said with a sigh. Leaning back against the tree, she opened her book and tried to read. Every so often she glanced up to make sure the boy was safe. The result was that she read only bits and pieces, hardly taking in any meaning. The way she was feeling, the words before her seemed empty. She was only staring at the book when she suddenly felt a poke on her left shoulder. Startled, she turned around. No one was there. She turned back to her book. Standing in front of her was the grinning Herbert. "Fooled you," he cried. "How'd you get here?" she asked. "Walked," he said. "Hey, you Ida or you Miss Bison now?" he asked. "Guess I'm nothing but Ida," she replied glumly. "What are you doing here?" "Nothing," he said. "Just thought I'd come by and say howdy." "Herbert," she replied, "don't tell me you walked 7 miles just to say hello." Herbert grinned. "Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. That your baby brother?" he asked. "That's Shelby, all right. See, you got a book. Trying to teach him now?" "Can't use the school, can I?" Ida said, suddenly feeling cross. "Which probably makes you happy." "How so?" "You don't like school." Herbert looked at his feet and wiggled his toes. He said, "Hey," he said, "no kid's gonna say he likes school, 'cause if they do, the other kids will rag on him." "But you don't like it," Ida said accusingly. Herbert still didn't look up. "Come on, Ida, there's lots of work to be done on my dad's place," he said. "Just him and me, you know." "I know," Ida said, already sorry she had spoken so sharply. Herbert was quiet for a moment. Then, without looking at Ida directly, he says, "See, my dad, he never had much learning, and sometimes I think he gets fretted up about me knowing more than he does, and worries I'll get uppity, and thinks if I know too much that I might take off. You know, hightail it somewhere far away, never come back, which I might just do someday. Angry old cuss he is. Lonely, too." It's not a nice thing to call your dad. Do not repeat that. "Is that why he told Mr. Jordan about our school?" Herbert looked around. There was no grin on his face now. "Guess he did. Wasn't me who told Dad about it, though. Knew he'd object. You told him. He was pretty sore. Called me a liar. Then a couple days ago he told me how stupid I was. I got so mad I let him know something about my learning." "How did you do that?" Herbert grinned. "I just stood there Pitch and Hang recited the whole darn speech from Shakespeare. You know that one in the Reader from Julius Caesar? The one Tom couldn't understand? Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ear. I'll come to bury Caesar, not praise him. Ida, feeling her anger melt, laughed and clapped her hands. I didn't know you knew that speech, she said. How many years have I been going to that school? And how many kids had to learn that speech? I guess I heard it enough, didn't I? Anyway, Herbert went on, I was going on like that, mighty high and powerful, and pretty soon that old man got so mad he just took off. Guess that's when he went and told Jordan what we were doing. I think he wanted to fix it so I couldn't learn any more speeches. I'd have studied him. Herbert, can I tell you something? Sure. You are really smart. How come you won't act it? 'Cause I'm dumb. Ida sighed. How'd you know I was down here? She asked. Ma tell you? Nope. She don't know I'm here. I just watched till you showed. Followed you here. Don't mind, do you? No, she said. And you can sit. You've walked a long way. Don't mind if I do. Shelby splashed and laughed. They watched for a while. I wish we were like that, Herbert said. Why? I suppose he don't know much of anything, I tell you. Miss Bison, knowing things can worry you deep. I never saw you worry. Maybe not before. I'd have considered him. Herbert looked very serious. But if you don't worry, she asked carefully, what kind of things would you be worried? But if you did worry, she asked, what kind of things would you be worried about now? Well, Herbert drawled. Suppose a fellow knew there was going to be a school board meeting, and suppose that meeting was to make sure the school stayed shut, and suppose that meeting was going to be held not exactly secret, you see, but real quiet so people wouldn't know, except for folks like my dad who don't like the school much, and suppose even my dad bragged to me about how there wouldn't be any school for me to go to anymore, 'cause see, no one who likes schooling would be able to show up at that board meeting because they wouldn't know about it. Ida's heart started hammering. Herbert, when's a body supposed that meeting will be taking place? I guess he'd suppose it'd be tomorrow evening, 7 sharp, at the schoolhouse. That's what, Herbert. Is this what you suppose? I do, Miss Bison, Herbert returned with a grin. I surely do. And what would you do about it? I don't exactly know, but if I was you, I'd do something. Make sure that the right people show up. Herbert, Ida said, smiling, I do like you. I truly do. Not looking at her, Herbert poked his feet. Better than Tom? Ida blushed, scooped up some water, and flung it at him. Shoo, she cried. Herbert laughed, jumped up, and ran away. Momentarily, Ida looked after him. Then grabbed Shelby's hand. Come on, we got a lot of work to do. I cannot wait to find out what happens at this school board meeting. See you guys tomorrow.